Welcome to GK FinTalks. Today our session is on working capital assessment. Working capital, which is also called operation capital and which is required to run day-to-day business of any firm and to meet short-term obligations. So working capital is very much important for any firm. There are two concepts of working capital. One is gross working capital and second one is net working capital. The gross working capital is nothing but a capital invested in current assets, and current assets are nothing but which can be easily recoverable into cash, converted into cash, and which will be useful to run in the operating cycle. Normally, this operating cycle means it should be less than 12 months. Net working capital is nothing but liquid surplus, that is, the difference between current assets and current liabilities. If the difference is positive, we can say that net working capital is positive. If difference is negative, we can say it is negative net working capital. Now we will go through these two concepts one by one. First one is gross working capital. In other words, we can say it is sum of total current assets and assets that are recoverable in cash within a period of operating cycle and not more than 12 months. This operating cycle is different from different industries. For some industries, it may be 3 months or 6 months and should not be more than 12 months. Net working capital means liquid surplus that is equal to current assets and current liabilities. The difference between current assets and current liabilities is net working capital. In other words, it is nothing but a company is having funds to meet short-term obligations and expenses to cover. We can say it is an important tool to know the company position or status, financial status, whether they can meet short-term obligations or not. Now we will go through working capital gap. Working capital gap is nothing but the difference between current assets and current liabilities other than bank borrowings. Normally, banks may adopt one of these three methods to assess working capital requirements. The first one is turnover method. Second one is MPBF, maximum permissible bank finance method. And third one is cash budget method. Turnover method. This can be made applicable to all the borrowers enjoying fund-based working capital limits up to and inclusive of 5 crores within the banking system. Under this system, the working capital requirements of the borrower will be assessed at 25% of the projected annual turnover, of which at least 4/5, that is 20% of the project turnover should be provided by the bank as working capital finance, and balance 1/5 of the project, that is 5% of annual turnover, should be contributed by borrower as his margin towards the working capital. Here you may observe that the total projected turnover is 100 lakhs, minimum working capital 25% of 100, that is 25, margin by the borrower is 5%, and minimum bank credit is 20 lakhs. Maximum permissible bank finance. This was recommendations of Tandon committee, and to assess the level of net working capital, which is normally should not be less than 25% of total current assets. There are two methods in this, and we will compare both the methods now. In this, as per the first method, 25% of working capital gap, and if you observe the second method, it is 25% of the current assets. If we observe that total current assets is 1000 less current liabilities 200, the working capital gap is 800. Here minimum net working capital 25% of working capital gap, that is 800. It will come to 200 under first method, and in second method 25% of current assets, that means 1000 into 25%, that is 250, which will come to 250. Here as per the first method, the maximum permissible bank finance is 600, whereas in second method it is 550. Again I am repeating, under first method it is 25% of working capital gap, and in the second method it is 25% of current assets. Cash budget method is very much customer friendly for the firms involved in seasonal industries and construction activities. Here the peak level of cash deficit will be ascertained as total working capital. The net working capital is at least 25% of the peak deficit. The cash budget statement would comprise of projected receipts and payments for the next 12 months, basing on which the assessment will be done.